Hello. It's been my intention to film a reaction to this week's visit by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky to the United States and to the events of the UNGA, the United Nations General Assembly. But I wanted to wait until the end so I could talk about it comprehensively. First off, there's simply too much to cover in a short little reaction video. So I've tried to consolidate it down here with some notes. First off, the week begins last Sunday with Zelensky flying across the Atlantic on a U.S. Air Force cargo plane. The more rabid of the anti-Ukraine, pro-Putin crowd decry this and say, why is he traveling on our dime? I've been on those planes, man. We have so many planes, C5s, what have you, flying back and forth. And there's oftentimes space. So this is the first indication of how things are going to go this week. He also comes out in an interview that day saying that vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance is too radical and that he should study the Second World War a little bit more when it comes to capitulation. He's, of course, absolutely right, and Vance is an idiot. And maybe had he met with Zelensky in Munich when he had the chance, instead of saying, I already know everything I need to know, he could have picked up on those subtle points. Right. Then Zelensky goes to the munitions plant in Pennsylvania. And again, it becomes partisan. This, I think you'll see, becomes kind of a trend for this trip. The fact that there were no GOP representatives there, or that it's a battleground state, or all these other issues when it comes to domestic U.S. politics, he's come under criticism here for doing it, which is markedly different than, say, being able to criticize the president of the Russian Federation. You can criticize the president here in Ukraine, and he did come under some criticism because there is a widely accepted opinion here that Ukraine must find a way to work with whoever's going to be in the next administration. But nevertheless, for then afterwards, Speaker Mike Johnson to call for the dismissal of the Ukrainian ambassador to the United States because of what he deemed to be a election interference or a partisan effort with Zelensky as a prop. It doesn't wash with me. The GOP spent months denying Ukraine weaponry, in no small part because of Mike Johnson, even if he decided to do the right thing in the end. So on your bike, Mike. The one last thing I will mention about that, the factory visit, is the controversy, in quotation marks, of Zelensky signing a shell. I'm not a fan of this tradition, but it is a practice and a tradition that has existed for as long as there have been artillery shells. It's a way to send a message when somebody's, when you're in a war with somebody, you tend to have ill will towards them. Writing a slur or something on the side of a bomb is kind of just something people do. I don't like it, but it is what it is. Also, in addition to that, I think it's more egregious or more significant that you're sending a artillery shell at someone to kill them than writing a nasty word on them. Secondly, having been shot at by Russians, it kind of weakens my resolve to be steadfast in objecting to that practice. Okay. So now we get to the actual UN General Assembly. His Zelensky speech, not his best, a little bit lacking in energy, but in an international forum to bring up the fact that should Russia hit, say, a nuclear power plant, that the fallout will not recognize borders, and hence the international community should be paying attention to what Russia is doing here. Valid point, and the right platform to present that point. But also at the UNGA, away from Zelensky, if you have not watched British Foreign Secretary David Lammy's speech, it is powerful, incredibly powerful. When he points out, we know what you're doing. We see you, Moscow. We know what you're doing, and it is bold-faced imperialism. I will add a little snippet here from his speech, but I recommend everybody to go and watch it in full. I'll put a link in the description.
Mr. President, I speak not only as a Briton, as a Londoner, and as a Foreign Secretary, but I say to the Russian representative on his phone as I speak that I stand here also as a black man whose ancestors were taken in chains from Africa at the barrel of a gun to be enslaved, whose ancestors rose up and fought in a great rebellion of the enslaved. Imperialism, I know it when I see it, and I will call it out for what it is.
Masterful speech. Also, at the UNGA, something I was very happy to see was the Belarusian exile, president, in my opinion, in exile, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, being treated as an equal in many areas, many meetings with significant world leaders, because Alexander Lukashenko is an illegitimate president. So good on you, Svetlana. And I hope that the true message of Belarus gets out there increasingly. So back to Zelensky and his meetings away from the UNGA. He sits down with Biden. He brings to Biden what he calls his victory plan. And it is just that. I mean, it is reportedly just that, a way to win this war. Because this war is winnable by Ukraine. And it must have impressed Biden a certain amount, because he subsequently would declare another roughly $8 billion in support for Ukraine. Most of that money will be, as usual, spent in the United States for arms producers. So that is a good thing. But also another aspect of his meeting with Biden is that Biden, for the first time, has started to say the United States of America is determined to help Ukraine win this war, not as long as it takes or whatever kind of ambiguous language. No, he said we are going to help Ukraine win this war, achieve victory, and that is a significant difference, and one that was welcomed here, I can tell you, in no small measure. The same with his meeting with Harris. And what was remarkable for me also was the distinction and the difference between his meetings with Biden and Harris, professional adults meeting in a room, and sadly how we kind of ended the week with Volodymyr Zelensky having to go and sit with Donald Trump because Ukraine needs American support. And if, God forbid, Donald Trump gets back in the Oval, they will have to find a way to negotiate. But what that meeting revealed, I think, to many, and lots has been said about Zelensky's body language and his expression on his face. Trump will not support Ukraine if he gets into the White House. He can give lip service to all sorts of different perspectives, but at the end of the day, he is Putin's man, and he will not support Ukraine. And to bring it back to my original point, even going back to the transatlantic flight, the GOP is no friend of Ukraine. The GOP will abandon Ukraine, will abandon democracy in Europe, because, make no doubt about it, an emboldened Moscow will flood the zone in Europe and diminish liberal democracy and our closest allies in Europe. And that cannot happen. Trump showed his true colors, like he always does. Nobody should be surprised by that, and I'm not. I'm not expressing surprise. What I'm expressing is disappointment and disgust. When he turned to Zelensky, when Zelensky said, "I hope we have a better relationship with D.C. than Putin has with D.C. because we're allies," and Trump dismissively said it takes two to tango. The man has no concept of what is happening here and the importance of what is happening here. And even if he does, he has decided to side with the enemy of democracy, Vladimir Putin. We cannot give this man a second term. We cannot vote in the GOP, who, like lemmings, are equally anti-Ukrainian without true understanding of the complexities here and the ramifications of a Ukrainian loss. And finally, the message that Zelensky brought to the United States was right. This war can be won. We just have to be steadfast and be with them. And I believe a Harris administration will do that. Trump will not. So, well, those are just my thoughts on the matter. If you like the content that we provide here at On the Edge with Philip Ittner, whether it is these reaction videos or our weekly interview show that we put out every Sunday at 8 p.m. Kiev time, do hit that subscription button, but also the notification bell. Thanks for tuning in.